Welcome back. In this clip, Duff and I chat about the differences between the Andreas style of NLP and the HNLP style, and really how these two styles have informed our coaching, the blend between the two. So we chat about that back and forth. I think this video really will be for people who are students of the game, who love NLP, and are interested in growing in your flexibility and bringing a diverse range of skills. So lock in. If you're interested in coaching, apply for coaching below. If you'd like to follow Duff, go ahead and follow him. You'll see the links. All right, so the Andreas NLP camp, yeah? And not versus, but because there are stylistic differences that happen.
Definitely.
And so in the HNLP, so when I learned about Steve, first with the self-concept model and then the PTSD model, and then really going deep into his work and reading all of his stuff that I could get my hands on. There was a huge fan of Map Across, right? Like he's doing that a lot.
Yes.
But then what I took from the HNLP family was the dance of coaching, the interrelationship of because they're very much about the self anchors and the relationship between the coach and client. And I found it so helpful to be informed by different coaching styles.
Definitely. Me too. Yeah.
So I'm just curious to get your perspective, having grown up in the NLP camp, the Andreas camp, and then
Yeah. Originally, I was in the Tony Robbins camp.
That's
and
true.
moved on to the Andreas NLP camp, and then into the HNLP. But it's not that I don't do elements from all of them. So for me, what the Andreas NLP school does well is precision of technique, of reliable technique. And so there was a time when I really needed that, because my biggest fear was I wasn't doing it right.
Yeah, same.
And I didn't know enough to improvise, or I felt I couldn't trust myself. It wasn't that I didn't know enough to improvise. I felt like I couldn't trust myself. And so I wanted somebody to tell me the steps: step 1, step 2, step 3. When step 3 doesn't work, you do this alternate one. And the Andreas NLP school does that extremely well. Steve was always extremely good at writing down the recipes. Some people can do things really well in NLP, and their step-by-step things they've written down are garbage. Like you can't do anything from what they wrote down. But if you watch them enough, you can figure out what they're doing and actually do it. But Steve is really good at writing it down, and so is Connie Ray, and getting that like really precise and great instructions and great step-by-step procedures. So if you follow the procedures, you will get the results in a way that is very reliable and very powerful. And really includes everything, comprehensive and precise, and great values built in. So there's so much going for it there.
He was very sensitive to ecology. I mean, he was
so sensitive to ecology. Don't want to mess anything up. Don't want to have any negative side effects from what you're doing, which is so incredible. The HNLP training that we did, that really opened up something new for me in my coaching as well, though, because I was pretty technique focused. I was like, what technique am I going to apply to this? But I was starting to go beyond that already naturally. I was starting to be like, I want to go off script, and I trust myself enough. I've got enough knowledge now. I've got enough experience with things working on script. What if I try to apply those principles more free form? And I was starting to do that, but I hadn't really given myself full permission to that until that training. And then after that training, I was like, I have 100% full permission. I've gotten it the whole time from the trainers. That's what their whole thing is. It's like, go off script, and here's some structure for doing that. And improvise.
And they're so good at that too.
They're so good at that. Absolutely. They model that. And I've started to do that. That's how I work all the time now, mostly. I only occasionally use a technique now. I have all sorts of techniques I've invented that I throw in.
I've seen.
And I do a lot of my coaching is, I think of terms more of like feedback loops or even neural networks. I haven't taught this to anybody yet, but like one thing I do, so in NLP, when we get the change, we do the tote, then we do future pacing, right? Future pacing often is like just like one thing, like think about the next time it's going to happen and imagine it. Oh, I feel good. Great. I've started to consider that as just the start of the change.
Okay.
That's just the beginning. Now the goal is to actually create enough feedback loops in the neural network, in the brain, enough connection points that you're never going to forget that change. That's my goal.
So like iteratively, so it
Right.
iterates.
So here's an example of what I do. So let's say we just got a change for you and you're feeling great and you're like, yay, this new context or this context, I feel good. I'm like, great. I'll distract. I'll talk about something else. Hey, what's going on in your life, Peter? What are you looking forward to the next few weeks? Oh, I'm going out with my friends on Thursday or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. And then maybe this thing happened to do with communication. So I'll bring it up in that context. But what if something goes wrong, Peter? And then, and then you'll have the change again. You'll be like, oh, it'll be fine. Okay, great. And then we'll talk about something else. Maybe we'll change something else to another piece of change work. I'll come back to the original piece of change work again, test it again, iterate, throw a bunch of things at it. So I'm trying to link it up to just like random parts in the brain, but also meaningful parts. So I might end up future pacing 7, 8, 9, 10 times. Yeah. But in an organic kind of like conversational style. So we're going off over here and we come back. We go off over here, we come back. Go over here, we come back. It's like callbacks in comedy, in like stand-up comedy. Someone tells a joke and they have this funny thing, and then they give another joke, and then they somehow link it back to the first joke, and people are just laughing even more.
Cool.
So I'm trying to do that, and people are laughing in my sessions too. I'm trying to do that and bring it back from all these different angles. I don't know why I started doing that, but it just makes sense to me. It's like, this makes sense is why this is going to stick if I do it this way.
Cool.
So anyway, that's just a little thing to play with, but